Well, you're not going to see me in this video, but that's okay. I'm Hawkeye here at Maple Leafs Man Advantage. And I got my Leafs Legends list here going, and I'm going to add a few more guys onto the list. Their playing days are over, but we got Dick Duff, Billy Harris, Ron Stewart, Frank Mahovlich, and down we go. Alan Stanley, Johnny Bauer, Timmy Horton there as well. And we're going to add some names onto this list. And first up, sorry, boom, down I go. Bob Pulford is going to be the next guy on this list. And I'll tell you about each of these guys like I've done when adding all the other guys. So Bobby Pulford, he was born on March the 31st, 1936, in Newton Robinson, Ontario. He grew up in Weston, Ontario, though, and he went by the nickname Pulley. Definitely a good hockey nickname there. Bob played 14 seasons in Toronto, and when he finished his career, he did play 2 seasons for the LA Kings, and he was a captain for them after Toronto traded him over there. For the Leafs, Bob played 947 games. He scored 51 goals, sorry, as you can see here. Had 312 assists for 563 points. He was a four-time 20-goal scorer in Toronto. He had a career high of 28 back in 1965-66. Also was his career high in points. He had 56. So he wasn't, like a big point guy, um, but he was very effective. Excellent penalty killer in Toronto. And he won 4 Stanley Cups, as you see there, 1962 through 64 and 1967. In the playoffs for Toronto, he played 89 games, scored 25 goals. He got 26 assists for 51 points. He led the playoffs in 1967 with 10 assists, and he led 1959, 62, and 64 playoffs with shorthanded goals as well. He led 62 playoffs in shooting percentage, and overall he had 2 power play goals, 4 shorthanded goals, and 4 game winners. He also had 126 penalty minutes. Bobby could get the penalty minutes too from time to time. And he also played on 5 All-Star teams: 1960, 62, 63, 64, and 68. And he led the league in 3 seasons for shorthanded goals while a Leaf as well. After his playing days, though, Bob, he was known for this too. He got into coaching, never did coach Toronto, but he coached the LA Kings to begin with. His record with the Kings was 178 wins, 150 losses, 68 ties from 1972 through 77. He then went over to the Chicago Blackhawks organization, and he stayed there for 3 decades. His coaching record with Chicago was 185 wins, 211 losses, and 68 ties. Interesting, he has the same amount of ties in Chicago and LA. Bob also acted as general manager for the Hawks on 3 different occasions. So 1992 through 97, 1999, 2000, and 2003 through 2005. Currently, Bob is third all time in Hawks wins as a coach behind Billy Ray and Joel Quenneville. His complete coaching record is 363 wins, 330 losses, 136 ties, and in the playoffs, 27 wins, 43 losses. He made the semifinals twice with the Blackhawks, 1982 and 1985. Now, Bob played junior hockey for the Toronto Marlboros. A lot of them did that back then. And he won the Memorial Cup twice under former Leaf and Hall of Famer Turk Broda. So excellent job there by Bob. And he was also the first president of the NHLPA, or the NHL Players Association. And as you can see, I got a red star beside his name. So he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was inducted in there in 1991. Certainly a great and worthy addition to my Leafs legend list. That's Bob Pulford. So next, down we go. Boom, boom, boom. And Sorry, Chief, I didn't put your name in capitals there, but that's George Armstrong, next on my list. And he was the captain um, of the Leafs during those Stanley Cup wins in the 60s. George Armstrong. He was born on July the 6th, 1930, in Guy, I think it was how it's pronounced, Ontario. Not sure exactly where that is, but George played two games for the Leafs in 1949-50. Then from the 1951-52 season until his last season in 1970-71. That means he played 21 seasons in the blue and white, playing 1,188 games. He scored 296 goals, adding 417 assists for 713 points. His games played, number one all time for the Leafs. I think number two is Tim Horton. While he never scored more than 23 goals in a season, there's no way you got to hold this guy back from coming to this list. Like Pulford, he scored 20 goals four times as a Leaf. He captained the Leafs for 13 seasons. And as I said, for the four Stanley Cups in the 60s, in the playoffs, he played 110 games, scored 26 goals to go with 34 assists for 60 points. He led the 1964 playoffs in power play markers. Overall, he had 8 power play goals and 3 game winners. He also played in 7 All-Star games as a Leaf, so 56, 57, 59, 62 through 64, and 68. For the last 5 years of his career, I found out he kept leaning towards retirement, but he decided to lace up the skates for another season. And he still had it going. George did, kept it going as long as he could play. I think you know, he was, he did his job out there. So an interesting little fact is he scored the final goal in the original six era, as he was the last goal scorer for the Leafs in the 1967 playoffs. Like Pulford, after him, he played junior for the Toronto Marlboros. And then after his playing days, I always thought he just sort of transitioned into office staff for the Leafs. But he first became head coach of his junior team, the Toronto Marlboros. He was coaching them. Actually led the Marlboros to two Memorial Cup trophies in 1973 and 75. Now, after losing his job as head coach with the Marlboros, George became a scout with the Quebec Nordique. It was then 10 years later he returned to the Maple Leafs. He was assistant general manager of the Leafs and sorry there, and was the head coach back in 1988-89 for the Leafs. Um, and he didn't coach like the full season. He went 17 wins, 26 losses, and 4 ties. So a short career in coaching, and I think he just found out, this is not for me in the NHL coaching, perhaps. But after that, he was a scout for the Leafs again until he passed away on January 24th, 2021. And no surprise that supposedly George preferred scouting to coaching, for sure. So the number 10 he wore for the Leafs has been officially retired by Toronto. They didn't retire it till 2016. Um, that's something I gotta say. I always hated that about the Leafs, the fact that they never retired the number of the players. Um, and these players, like organizations would have killed to get their hands on these guys. They just never retired their numbers. And I guess it all comes back to originally Harold Ballard. He didn't retire numbers. He just moved it on to the next guy, like for example, Daryl Sutter wore 27, but so did Frank Mahovlich, um, which is okay, I guess, but it's like, boy, should have retired that number, or I don't know, but let or I don't know, leave it aside. But he definitely liked to hand those numbers out to guys again. And this isn't all on Harold because um, they didn't retire this guy Armstrong's number till I think 26 years after um, Ballard had died. So you can't blame him after that. It took that long to retire this number, and that's sad. I'm glad they've done it, but um, too bad it took that long. As you see, there's a red star. So, yep, he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he was inducted in 1975. And he's also in the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame and was inducted in 2010. So, he was born to an Irish Canadian father named Frederick and an Ojibwe mother named Alice. He became the first NHLer to score a goal with Native heritage, which is excellent. Um, George grew up in Falconbridge, Ontario. That's where he grew up, where his father was a nickel miner. George also had one sister named Lillian. Crazy enough, while he was attending Sudbury High School, he played on a hockey team with Tim Horton. That would have been cool. Um, I wonder how many games they lost. George is also the uncle of Dale McCourt, who ended up playing with the Detroit Red Wings, Buffalo Sabres, and finished his NHL career with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Before I think he went and played hockey in Italy for like 7 years or something. He was definitely good enough for the NHL, but he went over there. Dale went on to play 532 games and scored 194 goals, so he could do it. Um, and his other nephew, Dan McCourt, Dale's brother, he officiated in the NHL, and he did that in over 1,700 games. Excellent. I remember Dan McCourt. Um, yeah, when hearing stories of Armstrong through his former teammates like Johnny Bauer or Jim McKenney, he seems like he had a wicked sense of humor, and must have been a great teammate and a great leader. And that's him. That's George Armstrong. So, okay, and I've got the next page set up here. My blue ink is running on empty here. It's not looking good, but that don't matter. We're going to keep going here. Next up is Bob or Bobby Baun. Um, Now, as you can see, he's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But I'm not suggesting he belongs there, whatever, but boy, was he ever a good defenseman in the games I saw. Offense wasn't his thing, but it was the defense and the heavy hitting. He was rough and tough. He was a good defenseman. He was born on September the 9th, 1936, in Lanigan, Saskatchewan. He had the nickname Boomer, which is an excellent nickname for a defenseman. He stood at only 5'9", but he played like he was 6'4". Like many greats before and after him, he played junior for the Toronto Marlboros, so all three of these guys played for them. And he won the Memorial Cup in 1955 and 56. As I said, offense was not a big part of his game. It was the hard but clean hits that he would deliver, and I imagine he was thought of as one of the best during his playing days. Definitely. Tim Horton was another one on the Leafs that he played with, another great hitting defenseman. Um, Now, supposedly, Baun knew the business side of the game much better than some of his teammates. And when those teammates would go in for salary talks, they would ask Baun for his opinion. Um, this it looks like it eroded the friendship between Baun and coach and GM Punch Imlach, um, which may explain why Baun was replaced on defense while still playing with the Leafs in 1966-67, and not getting great playing time during the run to the Cup, being left unprotected for the 1967 expansion draft as well, where he was picked up by the Oakland Seals. Not a good choice there, Punch. But uh, that's what happened back then. Um, you suffered helping your teammates, I guess, and Punch was there to try and save the team money. Um, but Now I see that it was a neck injury that he suffered in 1972-73 from Mickey Redmond. So that was, the previous season. That's where I'm up to in this point. But it was Redmond that ended his career, and he only played 5 games that season. So it must have been fairly early into the season. After his playing days were over, Bob did a stint at coaching the WHA for the Toronto Toros during the 1975-76 season. Playing for the team were old teammates like Frank Mahovlich, Paul Henderson, and Jim Dory. He had a record of 15 wins, 35 losses, and 5 ties in the 55 games he coached. He was inducted into the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame, in 2010, and is the grandfather of former NHL player Kyle Baun. He played 5 games in the NHL for the Chicago Blackhawks. In the end, Bobby played 739 games in Toronto. He scored 29 goals, as you can see. He had 140 assists for 169 points, as well as getting 1,153 penalty minutes. So he did spend some time in the sin bin. In the playoffs for Toronto, Bobby played 92 games. He scored 3 goals to go along with 12 assists for 15 points and grabbed 165 penalty minutes. He did only have the one game winner, but boy, oh boy, was it ever important. It was the game winner in 1964 when they eliminated the Detroit Red Wings in Game 6 of the 1964 Stanley Cup Final. Toronto ended up winning the series in 7, but he went on to win 4 cups in Toronto, um, 62 through 64 in 1967, like most of these guys. So that's it. That's Bob Baun. He's on my Leafs Legends list on defense. So there you have it. So yes, if you like this video, go ahead and hit like. Um, I would appreciate it if you subscribed as well. And you can comment about maybe any of these players if you ever saw them play, anything like that. But until next time, go Leafs, go.